everyone, welcome back to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast, where we roll into this week after a pretty successful weekend last weekend for the team. 3 out of 3 on the naps, which I don't think we've had many before, so delighted we're coming into this in good form. Ross Millar delivered with a 5-1 winning nap over the jumps in the shape of Egerton de Soil. We're pleased to see that come through. And then TC, what a weekend, your favourite Persian Force winning and en route to Royal Ascot, looking like the ever good a 2-year-old as you hoped he would be, and hitting the crossbar with Eraz and Surrey missed. But even though my winning nap was Type of Flow, who beat Eraz, I have to think that horse Eraz might come out on top next time out. A really good edition of that race last weekend at Newbury. And we're going to start with a race for this weekend that ties in really strongly with that, as it's another very competitive 6 furlong sprint, a good bunch of 3-year-olds really at this distance, that we can have another race very similar to the race last Saturday at Newbury, with a lot of form ties as well. And El Caballo, who beat Type of Flow, is currently the favourite for this Sandy Lane Stakes at 5-2, joint favourite, I should say, with Go Bears Go at 5-2, who had Eraz behind him. And then we got Flaming Rib 6-1, Couture 10-1 with Wings of War, and 12-1 Bigger the Rest. So I'll start with you, TC, because as I said, Eraz, your number one fan, he got very, very close for you last week. Essentially, do you think that Go Bears Go in here will confirm that Eraz form in what looks like a really nice race this?
Yeah, it's a really nice edition of the Sandy Lane. I'm still not over Eraz's defeat. Look, well done for your winner and Type of Flow. He ran a great race, but I thought Eraz was the best colt in there. He was ahead in front of the line and after the line, but just got chinned on the line. And I do think the form will be franked with Go Bears Go. I think what's crucial with the Sandy Lane is the fact that since 2012, 6 of the 9 winners of this race have been tried over 7 furlongs or further prior to running in the Sandy Lane, dropping back to 6. I think stamina is crucial over this kind of trip at Haydock. And the likes of Go Bears Go, although he didn't stay 7 furlongs particularly well, he stays 6 really well. He's like a 6.5 furlong colt, and I think that's perfect for this race. The exceptions to the rule that I just said, that 6 of the 9 have won that have been tried over 7 furlongs or further, are Harry Angel, who was just a phenomenal sprinter, Quiet Reflection, who went on to run at 7 furlongs and was already proven on heavy ground over 6, and A Day, who won subsequently over 7 furlongs. So stamina really is strong here. Most of the protagonists in this year's renewal actually have previously tackled 7 furlongs or have proven stamina at the trip. The only 2 exceptions are Couture and Wings of War, both trained by Clive Cox. I'll be against those 2 at this stage. Siding with Go Bears Go, as you say, there are very few 3-year-old colts out there that are this gutsy and determined. He just loves racing. He tries his heart out every time. He beat a good horse, as I said last time, in Eraz. I think that form will be boosted here. Go Bears Go for me in the Sandy Lane.
Okay, Go Bears Go, looking through, I agree with you. He's so hardy, he is. But I just was wondering, to get your opinion on this, will he get his own way out in front with El Caballo, who's likely to go on too? And I just feel like they could just take each other on just a little bit, which might set it up for some of those coming off the pace.
Yeah, there's a good possibility that they take each other on, but this is a sprint, isn't it? I mean, these horses only really have one early gear. There are a couple of hold-up horses, but most of them are just run and gun types. I don't really mind if Go Bears Go gets taken on. Actually, I think that's probably a positive, given how he fights in a finish. I think that will suit him. It won't suit El Caballo as much. El Caballo, we should also say, has been put up by a couple of tipsters earlier this week, and his price has just plummeted. I don't think he's the value in this race at all.
Yeah, 5-2 for a horse that didn't, obviously you see all the form figures behind him, but I think he would have, Type of Flow would have got to him in another stride last time out. And it's just the strength of the form with Go Bears Go, especially from his 2-year-old days as well, looks very good. James, your thoughts? It's interesting to see here, tracks wise, Haydock, you know yourself, riding as many tracks as you have done in your years, but Haydock and Ascot, similar enough. Go Bears Go looked like he was, relished that test at Ascot. Do you think it could be as straightforward for him this time?
He's got a very good record at Ascot, hasn't he? Go Bears Go. He should be able to transfer that to Haydock. He has had a real tough juvenile career, so it's great to see him come back with such a convincing win, I thought, at Ascot in his return, and a nice stepping stone to the Sandy Lane. When he went to Breeders' Cup, he actually struggled with the pit blinkers on him, struggled to get a handy position, and he stayed on really strongly. So he hasn't got to lead if there is a really strong pace burner. You're concerned with El Caballo. that was his first race he really had, wasn't it, last time at Newcastle? He dominated some pretty weak races on the weather. When you compare to what Go Bears Go was running in and switching from weather to turf, it doesn't always transfer. So that's the only question mark. Against that, he's on a roll, isn't he? 5 in a row. So confidence is sky high. But I think Go Bears Go is the class angle at the moment, but he might be vulnerable to improvement, and that is El Caballo. All the others, they all look a little bit more on the exposed side. Clive Cox has obviously got 2 in the field, both beaten on their return. Curragh, I always felt he's better at 5 last year. So as TC says, it can be quite a strong test over the 6 furlongs here in the Sandy Lane at Haydock, and that might not play to his strengths, but Adam has chosen over Wings of War. So on the whole, I think it's a race that will be dominated by the top 2 in the market, and purely toughness personified. Go Bears Go. I'm going to stick with him, and I think he's a good flag bearer for the Loughnane Yard.
So confidence behind Go Bears Go for James and TC. Ross, on your thoughts to this now, because you like hierarchy last week. You did probably sort of underperformed a little bit, but the form ties there with Eras and the likes. It's all sort of leading into Go Bears Go, looking like the strong horse in the race, as the guys was saying. I know that you're not keen on horses at this price, but he does look, and on ratings as well, he is the standout.
Yeah, he is. He's got a very strong sort of collection of form. I've actually gone with one that both guys sort of oppose, and I can understand why they oppose him. But Couture is 10-1. He was very impressive when flashing home in the Flying Childers over 5, but was doing all his best work late on. Then 2 weeks later went to the Middle Park, and I thought he ran a bit flat in that you'd have expected a 5 furlong horse to have travelled much the best into the race, and he didn't. He was under the pump from a fair way out, but was only beaten a length and a half in 5th, just a neck behind Go Bears Go. Well, Go Bears Go is 5-2, Couture is 10-1. I take on board what the guys say about the stamina, but he's got 2 siblings, both of which stayed 7 furlongs and one stayed a mile. I thought his reappearance running Chantilly in a Group 3 was good. I thought he looked to get tired late on, and a couple of Clive Coxes have looked to step forward for the run this year. So I just thought, at 10-1 on a flat enough track, I thought he was a bit of value against Go Bears Go, who is to my mind, the best piece of form in the race.
Yeah, that's it. It's an interesting assessment of Couture. He didn't seem to do anything too wrong last time in Chantilly. A good opportunity found there. I haven't been able to rewatch the race. Been trying to find it, but is that what did you make of that performance?
I thought he looked like he sort of had a fair old battle most of the way, got on top close home, and then got chinned in the last sort of 100 yards. So I think he was a little bit unlucky. I think he did sort of get a bit tired late on. Now, it could well be that TC and James are right in that he is a 5 furlong horse, and that stretched him. But he knuckled down really well in the Middle Park. And like I said, I don't think that was a real showing of him. So I'm prepared to try him again. And if he needs to go back to 5 furlongs, then so be it.
Yeah, entitled to might have just need the run as well. Okay, so that's 10-1 Couture for Ross. I'm going to go with another hardy sort, Flaming Rib, who was a really progressive 2-year-old last year when trained by Tom Dascombe. Now obviously in the care of Hugo Palmer. He's just going really good guns now. He's taken over. They tried him in the Greenham over 7 furlongs, and he obviously just didn't stay. I saw a quote saying that Michael Owen had these dreams that he could possibly be a Guineas horse. He clearly isn't. And being brought back to 5 furlongs. In fact, at Chester last time saw him to best effect. He's now up to 6, but he's a really solid and likable horse who always puts in a good performance. And at 6-1, he's a nice each way, just about price for me. Probably worth mentioning Joe Lyons sends over Beauty and Spies 2 out of 2, and Joe Lyons doesn't like normally sending horses over to England, so he's interesting to follow at 14-1. But that's the Sandy Lane Stakes. We'll see if the Go Bears Go train keeps on rolling for Dave Loughnane, who's been going really good guns. But we'll head into the Temple Stakes again for sprinters at 3:45 over 5 furlongs, and it sees the return of the Speed Star Queen Winter Power, and she's looking to build on what was a fantastic season last year with a win in the Nunthorpe Stakes, and she was a winner on her seasonal reappearance as well. So the market thinks that is going to get it off to another flyer. She's 6-4 from Twilight Calls off the back of a slightly probably frustrating for his connections run in the Palace House Stakes last time at Newmarket. He is 5-1, came from the darkest 92, and there's a bit of a jump out to 12-1 for Last Crusader. James, I'll start with you first, because I think there's quite a nice bunch of sprinters now. Sometimes we see time after time these races where we sort of could be anything that could come out of the pack and win a race like this. But Winter Power is she's a really likable, good sort, and she can just blitz a field like this. And it could be that again. Or do you think that there's something that within this that can cause a bit of an upset?
Just the way Winter Power is at 3 runs, 3 wins at York last year, 3 impressive wins. 3 runs elsewhere, 9th, 10th and 8th, Ascot, Curragh and Longchamp at the end of the season, and you can easily make excuses for that. But she's very inconsistent as a 2-year-old. I remember they talked about how good she was, and I think she ended up winning a nursery off 76 because she'd been so disappointing in her first 2 runs. She then got beat at Goodwood, making a quick return, and then went on to be a very good juvenile. So there's always a chance that she can blow very much hot and cold. So while she's by far the best, official mark of 117, and I wouldn't be surprised if she bolted up, I'm going to look elsewhere. And a lot of these sprint races, you get a little bit of a muchness. And Twilight Calls is a horse who, for me, is always flattered to deceive a little bit, because he's been very highly regarded by Henry Candy, a son of his own, Twilight Sun. And he ran well in the Palace House, but he looked like he was being much better than finishing 5th. I'm not sure how strong that renewal was. So I'm going to put up a couple bigger prices each way. Moskill, he definitely really isn't one for win punters, but he was second to Kings Lynn at the track last year. He's very consistent as for the runners-up spots. If you ignore when he disappoints that York behind Winter Power, I felt he's ridden quite negatively in an Unthorpe, and the pace just held up, and that's why he didn't run too well there. But otherwise, he had 3 seconds from 4 runs in the UK last year. Ed Bethel's horses are in form. He's not having much luck winners-wise, but they're running well. So I could see him being 2nd or 3rd at a nice price. And White Lavender is an interesting runner because Cole Burke has got an absolutely outstanding record with his juvenile fillies in particular. But the first run for the yard was a pretty impressive win at Bath in listed company. She can probably step up on that. And again, probably not good enough, but I could see her running well at a huge price for a bit of each way money. So it's a race where I wouldn't be surprised if Winter Power absolutely bolts up, but I wouldn't be surprised if she bombed out. And at the prices, she's very short. I think you can just take a bit of a chance and a couple of bigger prices.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Lockings last week, where there was such a short price favourite. A lot of very good, talented horses were exaggerated prices based on that. So Moskill, you can get 16-1, and White Lavender 25-1. And definitely a nice each way value there. I think that like you guys were saying in the last race, that this could be dominated by the top horse in the market, bar Twilight Calls, who I agree with James. I'm interested to see what TC you think. He has been just a little bit frustrating. Although rewatching that Palace House Stakes, he looked like he was just on the wrong side of the track, perhaps that day at Newmarket. But he just always goes off a short price. I can't follow him in enough. I do think Came From the Dark, however, wasn't necessarily given the ride that I would have wanted him to, and I think he's the horse that can bounce back from that. Whereas Twilight Calls, it's just a horse that I just get frustrated with. Do you see what my perspective with that is on that? Even though Twilight Calls came far ahead of him.
Yeah, I don't like Twilight Calls at all. I think he's a horse that travels extremely well through his races and then just often flatters to deceive. And in those races he does win, it tends to be that his opposition are actually faltering close to home rather than him pushing clear. I think he's been flattened many times in his races. Look, he's a very talented horse. I don't want to completely rule him out of this race, but if he's there and other horses are travelling as well, I wouldn't be backing him in play. That's for certain. Another horse who I won't be backing is Winter Power. Now, I'm very much in agreement with exactly what James said in here with her in this race. She comes out on top on figures pretty easily as well. £3 ahead of Last Crusader, who gets the 3-year-old allowance, but £6 ahead of her next rival. But York definitely ties into her best performances. And she seems to be all or nothing. Like, she's won 7 of her 15 races, but her last 4 defeats, she's finished 10th, 9th, 10th, 8th. There's no in-between ground. She either wins and makes all from the front, or she bombs out completely. And that is not for me at a short price. Okay, yes, she's very talented, but I don't want to be taking 6-4 or whatever about a filly that could just easily bomb out and finish out the back of the TV. I'm going to stick with Came From the Dark. Now, maybe this is a heart over head again. I seem to say this every week with a heart over head decision, but I tipped him last time at Newmarket. Completely agree with you on this as well. He didn't get given the best ride at all. But saying that, he didn't really fire either. Like, this is a horse who should be finishing well over the sprint trips, and he didn't really seem to pick up. Yes, he wasn't put in the best possible position, but it was a little bit disappointing nevertheless. I'm hoping he's going to take a big step forward. Ed Walker's horses have been a bit in and out. Like, he's had a few winners, I think 4 winners over the last 14 days, but he's had some that have disappointed as well. I think the return to Haydock will be the big plus for Came From the Dark. He's 3 from 5 at the track. This race should set up perfectly. I actually saw him at Ed Walker's yard this morning as well, and he was just sat chilled in his box. So I'm hopeful that Came From the Dark will come out on top.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think ground could be quite key. Might have just been on the quicker side for him at Newmarket last time. And I think if it is nice, good ground, there's been a bit of rain this week, and that might help him just slightly as well. Tom Marquand back on board as well. He's got a good record for him. So I'm gonna agree with you with Came From the Dark. I do think Ross is a horse in here, Last Crusader, who really impressed me last time. Don't know where that win came from, because the form had been a bit in and out before, but Carl Burke is just a point with him where he's able to really improve horses, and this is one of those. And as a 3-year-old, gets a good weight allowance off others.
Absolutely, I think you've hit on it. Yeah, I mean, and you were impressed, I was impressed, and most importantly, the handicapper was impressed. Up £10. Carl Burke does seem to do very well improving horses, and he seems to get horses on winning runs. You go through his form, he gets lots of horses racking up a sequence. I think it's quite interesting. He's turned out again. You have to take a bit of a chance with that, and he is drawn a little bit wide on the wing, but I could see him jumping and going forward again. He had a huge, great long stride. That £5 he gets from Winter Power is useful. And yeah, I just thought 12 to 1. He was a big price for a horse that is going there in form. And as TC hit on, there's a few in here that, yes, we say they're talented, but they do quite a good job of hiding it sometimes. So, he's getting there. He's in great form. He's a sprinter, so it's not like he's running a 3-mile chase, a week on. I think they can turn out a bit quicker than perhaps some of the stamina horses. So, yeah, I just thought at the prices he was huge value.
Yeah, that's a good point. Only 9 days ago that win. Well, once he runs on Saturday, it'll only been nine days after that win, and sometimes you make hay while the sun shines, especially with these sprinters. They can just bounce from race to race, as Go Bears Go did last year when he went from Ascot to Ireland and won, and they just can do that, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they'd be working over something like 4 or 5 furlongs most mornings anyway. So yeah, just run them if they're in form. So yeah, I thought 12 to 1 was a big price for a yard that's going along very well.
Yeah, and we just don't really know the limits of his ability either. If he's definitely going the right way. Okay, so there's an interesting one for Ross at Last Crusade. 12 to 1. Came For the Dark for myself and TC 92. Mossgill and White Lavender, bit of value there for James. 16 to 1 Mossgill, White Lavender 25 to 1. We're going to head from the UK over to Ireland as the Curragh host both the Irish 2000 guineas and the Irish 1000 guineas this weekend. 3:20 on Saturday is the Irish 2000 guineas for the 3-year-olds, and Native Trail, as expected, really 4 to 11 to win and sort of give William Björk a bit of redemption for being second to Curragh in the English version of the race. Buckaroo is 4 to 1. Wexford Native then is a bit of a jump out, 14 to 1. Ivy League 14 to 1, 22 to 1. Big the rest. As the market suggests, at TC, Native Trail should win this and should win it well. And if he can just repeat what he did in the English 2000 guineas, he should be too good for this field, shouldn't he?
Yeah, completely. There's no denying that Native Trail is definitely the horse to beat in here. He was very unlucky to bump into a horse with the ability of Curragh at Newmarket. He actually shaped really well despite losing his unbeaten record there as well. Clear cut second, just a very talented horse. He ran creditably, and he's 1 from 1 at the Curragh. There are very few things that put you off Native Trail. The price is probably the only one. If you're a punter, I mean, most people don't want to be backing horses at that short a price. But if you want the winner of the race, then Native Trail is by far the most likely horse to do that. I'm going to try find the value in each way play. I'm hopeful that's Duke de Sessa. He's a son of Lope de Vega, trained by Dermot Weld, who is fantastic at getting horses ready. And that Dermot actually said that this Irish 2,000 guineas will be the target for Duke de Sessa when he won the Group 3 Earfield Stakes in October last year. He's had 2 runs this season, both over a mile, 2 furlongs. I thought he shaped beautifully in the Ballysacks when he finished well. He stacked up nicely from a long way out. He just didn't finish very well in that race. And then last time in the Derby trial, I think it was more a test of whether he was actually going to stay 10 furlongs, because we didn't really find that out in the Ballysacks. He was held up off the speed in a race that was dominated by those who were ridden prominently, including Stone Age, who won the race and is now one of the favourites for the Derby. He never really made any inroads. He swung wide off the bend. I think there are plenty of reasons just to put a line through that effort. The drop back to a mile should suit. He's a big price for an each-way player in this race, and I want to be taking a little bit of that.
Okay, Duke Sessa, trying to come. I wasn't sure about trip for him. Obviously, they were trying to campaign him as a potential Derby horse, but coming back to the trip that he has won over, but that was back in his 2-year-old days. He needs to get back to winning ways. 25-1 as well to do that. So that's for TC. Ross, a horse that was ahead of Duke Sessa in the Ballysacks was Buckaroo, and I was really impressed with this horse. He probably could have given the English 1,000 guineas, 2,000 guineas, a go, but they've kept him at home. He's definitely, whereas Duke de Sessa, I'm not sure whether he's improved as a 3-year-old. This is a horse that definitely has.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to echo what TC said, it's a disappointing betting heat. Really, it'll be a great race to watch if Native Trail can show what he's shown so far. And you would say that a lot of these in behind Native Trail are probably going to be campaigning over further. It'd be no surprise if Native Trailer was just kept at a mile and was an out-and-out miler, whereas a lot of these might well end up over further. Buckaroo is perhaps one of those. I think they were toying with the idea of the Irish Derby. I think the faster they go in this, the more it's going to suit him, because I think he has got assured stamina. I didn't have a strong opinion, but I just thought of all those in behind Native Trail, he was the most likely to chase him home. I think he's got a bit of speed. He'll stay very well. He beat Wexford Native and Malix very easily last time out over course and distance. I see absolutely no reason why they would reverse the form. So it's not terribly exciting. But I think he'd be the forecast play or the play without the favourite if that's what you would like to do.
Yeah, 41 for Buckaroo. He's got a heap of entries ranging from a mile all the way up to a mile 4 for the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe at the end of the year. So they clearly think, and being by Fastnet Rock and out of a Galileo mare, that's definitely I'd imagine could be completely what he can get in time. But I just worry he might not have, because of that, the speed to go with Native Trail, who is he's so excellent at showing that. Interesting. It'd be interesting. I was wondering, James, what you thought about how William Buick will try and ride Native Trail, because he could, as we know, he hits that sort of customary flat spot a bit, but he does have a lot of speed against these horses that could be more stayers. So do you think he's just going to do his customary and try and keep it simple, or could he try and go out and make all?
I think he's a very easy ride. Whatever William wants to do, it don't matter. He was beat by a good horse in Curragh, and the draw 1 and 15, not many horses from high numbers figured on the Saturday and Sunday of Newmarket. So while I think that the best horse won, you could argue he was a little bit unlucky, and he was racing well away from his main rivals. So I think he was a little bit unfortunate. In a normal year, he would have won the 2,000 guineas. It was a really strong renewal this year. This gives me no interest whatsoever, to be honest. Buckaroo looks a solid one for the forecast spots. He's improved nicely from 2 to 3. But what we've seen, all these horses have all run against each other and they've all struggled, really. None of them are standouts. And I think both the Irish 2000 and the 1000 suffer from bigger races in the UK that are targeted from those that ran at Newmarket. And it's a nice opportunity, really, for Native Trail to get a confidence booster back. And if you do like backing odds on, there's loads of pluses, because the only negative you had was his recent races have been at Newmarket, but he travelled nicely over to the Curragh last year, and that didn't faze him. So yeah, he's as close as a certainty as to what we discussed in the pod, because national hunt races, you've got the 18 obstacles as such, you've only got the stalls. So yeah, he's got just absolutely amazing chance. But a little bit frustrating. It's not a stronger race to talk about.
Yeah, it's really not really much of a betting heat at all, and perhaps there could be some each way selections, just a bit like the lock-in of last week, which was proved quite right that there was just horses just trying to get into the placings behind such a good horse. But yeah, there's probably not a huge amount more to add. I'm going to throw in Atomic Jones for Joe Lyons at 22-1, a son of Wootton Bassett, who I was really impressed with on his first two runs. At 2, he actually beat Stone Age, one of the Derby favourites as a 2-year-old, but was behind him on his first run at 3, where I thought he didn't get a best run through. And by the time he did, the bird had flown and Stone Age had just sort of set his own fractions out in front. So I think he could be a little bit better than what we saw there. But yeah, not a huge betting race for this Irish 2000 Guineas, actually, as the market had suggested, and we're not surprised by Nature Trail at 4-11 to win a classic for Godolphin and William Buick. Okay, we'll head into the final race that we're going to look at, which is the Irish 1000 Guineas, which is a better betting heat, a bit like the English version actually. We don't have final declarations, but we assume that a good majority of these fillies will line up. Tuesday, who's got a very good case and is been tipped up big time for the Oaks herself. She ran a good race in the English 1000 Guineas. She's 7-4. Homeless Songs, who we've been waiting for, has gone from missing plenty of opportunities. Looks like she's going to run here at 11-4. History 5-1. Pearl Plays 8-1. And newcomer for William Haggis, an interesting horse, and Mise en Scene, who was unable to run in the English version the day of because of the temperature. Will line up here at 9-1, 10-1 bar that, and we can give these prices should the guys need it. TC, well, I'll start with you again and get your opinions on what's more of an open race and a fair few fillies in here that haven't really been tested at this highest level. But Tuesday proved that she's capable of being very, very competitive.
Yeah, Tuesday's the form setter, isn't she? She ran third in the English 1000 Guineas. I thought it was a very good effort. She seemed to be coming there to win the race, actually. And then I thought she flattened out close to home. Maybe that was inexperience because she definitely stays the trip. She's going to stay much further. And that's probably the reason why I'm actually taking her on here. Not the fact that she flattened out in the closing stages, but the fact that I think she's going to be much better over 1.5 miles. And that might just be the factor that gets her beaten in this race. Now, as I say, she is the horse to beat. She deserves to be favourite. There's no doubt about that. I'd just be disappointed if she wins this. And not from a talent perspective, just I think there are better milers in here. Homeless Songs could be one of them. She's a filly that really impressed me last time. Wicked turn of foot. As soon as she gets asked for any effort, she quickens up very takingly. She found 2 lengths in about 3 strides last time. It was magnificent acceleration. I think, it's the horse to beat. But I'm going to try and find 2 at double-figure prices. Hopefully both run. As you say, we don't have the final field, but I'm pretty sure both have been targeted at the race. The first is Panama Red. She beat History in a maiden last year. History is obviously running in this race and is half the price or a third of the price of Panama Red, who's kind of been overlooked in the market for J.L. Lyons. She's had no luck in 2 starts this term. Last time out at Leopardstown, I thought she was the best filly in the race, but she just had no luck at all in running. Colin Keane switched to the inside. Her race was over at that point. There was no way she was going to claw back the deficit. I think you can put a tick next to her name for the trip. I think she proved that day she handled a mile, and she's a massive price. I think she's overpriced in this field. The other one, I'm not too sure if she is overpriced or if I'm just hoping that she's going to be a lot better than some of these horses, and that's Hermana Estrella. She only had 1 start. I'm kind of taking a shot on her because I think she has the biggest amount of potential in the field. Last year, she made her debut for Fozzie Stack in a Group 3 at Naas. She was 50-1. It was a very good race. Contrali Chapel was in the field. Quick Susie, who finished second, went on to win at Royal Ascot, was also in the field. Yet Hermana Estrella just decided to beat them. It all ends up, and punters were like, what's gone on here? First-time starters beating these real good form horses. We haven't seen her since. Who knows if she's trained on from 2 to 3? Who knows if she's actually going to run in the race? But what she showed that day was a high level of ability. And if she has trained on, I think she could be one of those at a big price to cause a shock.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I wonder what if there has been an issue, a setback, or whatever it was. She's 10-1, and she's got plenty of entries. Though interestingly, she's got a Commonwealth Cup entry as well. So they're probably just working out here. Stepping up from the 6 furlongs to a mile for the first time, what it is that she'll be best effective over. But yeah, she's a really curious filly, and she is 10-1. As I said, Panama Red is 14-1. So that's 2 nice each way selections. Ross, you love finding some value as well in a race like this, where there's a lot of unknown quantities. What have you worked out?
Well, I agree with TC. I think Homeless Songs has got the best turn of foot that suggests she might be a better miler than Tuesday. I can completely agree with that. So I've taken a line of form off that with Jessica Harrington's Villanova Queen. Jessica Harrington won 2018 1,000 guineas with a daughter of Master Craftsman and Alpha Centauri, and this is another. She was given quite an odd ride last time in that she won on her second start at 2 over a mile and was ridden fairly prominently, and then was held up last time over 7 furlongs in the Guineas trial, and sort of did well to finish third. I don't think she would have beaten Homeless Songs whatever way she was ridden, but I just thought at 20-1 versus Homeless Songs at 11-4, if she's given a more forceful ride this time, slightly more forward and not having to do quite so much work in the sort of mid part of the race, I thought 20-1, she's not without ability for certain, and I think she is one that's overpriced in a race that's very open.
Okay, yeah, 20-1 for Villanova Queen. Plenty of potential there. James, I'll come to you. Homeless Songs, the guys have touched on. She is 11-4, and she has come out and won this season very impressively, and is clearly on the upgrade. Is there any reason to believe she can't confirm that performance at Leopardstown?
The worry is last year she beat Agartha by 2 lengths on her debut at Leopardstown, 8-1. That kind of performance wasn't expected, and then she had a little bit of time off the track, returned back in September, a couple of months later, and was only 5th and 6th, ran solid races, but went off at 9-4 and 6-4, so better was expected. And I just worry, does she do it best first time? Does she repeat it subsequently? So that's a slight negative for her. If Aidan O'Brien thinks that Tuesday's good enough to win the Irish 1000, bearing in mind pedigree screams Oaks, it would suggest that he thinks it's not a particularly strong race, and that perhaps she can back up and do both. So if Aidan declares Tuesday, we're still waiting for final decks, I'll be sticking with her. I didn't think it was a particularly strong Irish 1000. Again, history, the other Bayadora runner, she's starting to find her feet. She won at Gore in September, then returned, beating Agartha, like Homeless Songs did, by 3/4 of a length. So there's not much between her and Homeless Songs, and the history might be more progressive than Homeless Songs. So it's a race full of question marks. I've not really got anything at a big price either. Mise Scene, not quite sure what she did last year as such. She went over to America, not beaten very far at Del Mar, 4th to Inspire, with that performance worked out exceptionally well regarding the English 1000, so they'd be gutted to have missed that. But I've been intrigued to see how she gets on from 2 to 3. She's the only one that we've not really seen in action recently. But I thought Tuesday, that was a really solid run on just a third start in the 1000. And if Aidan decides to run her, I think that's a good decision in my book, and I'll stick with her.
Yeah, she looks like a filly who might just need benefit from more racing experience, because she did look quite green in
a long way in a short space of time, and she really, compared to most of the rivals that have had a good 2-year-old career, whereas she only had one run, and I think she surprised them by how well she won in her return to even step up for the 1000.
Yeah, definitely, and this, even if is not a huge amount of gap between this and the Oaks, it will benefit her. And being a full sister to Minding, she's only going to improve as she gets older as well. So confidence behind Tuesday for James at 7-4. You touched on History, a filly that I quite like for the English version, but she wasn't declared in the end, and she's one that got good form in behind Agartha. She beat her so similarly to Homeless Songs already this season, but she's a bigger price at 5-1. She's another one that, based on breeding, was only going to improve. She might even want further as well in time, but in an open enough race, I'm happy to go with her at 5-1. So an interesting renewal of the Irish 1000 guineas, following in on the Irish 2000 guineas on Saturday, and we've had a look at 4 races, but we've still got naps and next bets to go through. And don't forget, new SBK customers will get £30 in free bets by depositing £10. We did pretty well at this, guys, last week, so no pressure for naps and next bets. And I'll start with Ross.
So I'm sticking to the level this week. The nap comes in the 4:13 from Musselburgh, and it's Hilts. Got himself very well handicapped in 3 runs as a 2-year-old over 7 furlongs, and he went into my notebook for going up in trip. He Julie found all sorts of trouble over 10 furlongs at Redcar last time. And I was feeling very sorry for myself. And then he extricated himself and miraculously flew home and got up on the line. He's been raised £6 for that, but he goes up another 2 furlongs now. I think that extra 2 furlongs and fingers crossed a less troubled passage in running will see him comfortably defy that £6 rise. And then next best is in the 420 at Haydock. Leopold Bloom won on debut at Thirsk, and he went so wide round the bend he actually disappeared off the TV screen. He's then been a bit disappointing. He was quite highly tried the next time at Doncaster, then gone on your weather, and then looked last time to not sort of perhaps get home over 7 furlongs. He's quite a keen going sort, so I think this drop back to 6 furlongs is quite interesting. Runs off a marker 75, and the horse he beat on that debut at Thirsk won a couple of weeks back off 77. So I think marker 75 looks more than fair, and I think this drop back to 6 furlongs with Tom Marconda looks promising.
Okay, 2 nice selections there, and on the flat. But I assume we'll be back.
We'll be back.
We haven't converted you completely, have we?
Not a chance, Jess. I'm afraid, not a chance.
Hilts and Leopold Bloom for Ross. James, on to you next.
Yeah, I'll fire Ross in. Hilts is my nap of the day as well. Slightly different reasoning, so I backed Zinnerman. He was one of my 3-year-olds to follow, and he got chinned on the line by Hilts at Redcar. Now Zinnerman has actually gone on to win at Haydock last time out, 2 starts later. So he's actually £6 worse off of Hilts. And as Ross documented earlier, Hilts would have been an unlucky loser. So for me, Hilts is the nap of the day. At must have run the 4:13 like Ross. And the other one, I'm going to go for another 2-year-old I like from last year, Bosch. It was really tough there, Richard Hannon. I liked him when I saw him at Newbury when he won as a juvenile. He was second in the big sales race over in Ireland. A good third in his return. It's an open 3-year-old handicap. That's 145 at Goodwood over 7 furlongs. I think he's got a cracking each way chance, and he might just get his head in front. Jamie Spencer might just suit Bosch as well. So that's 2 3-year-olds, different types. One that's a little bit exposed in Bosch, but we know what we're going to get. And I'm following Ross in with Hilts.
Okay, Hilts is the name to take away already from our nap selections. Bosch as well. Definitely think the Hannon horses have needed the run too. So yeah, let's hopeful for Bosch at Goodwood. TC, coming on to you next. Have you got Hilts in there?
No, Jess. I'm actually taking Hilts on, but we'll get to that in a second.
Ooh.
We'll start with a nap, and that is Third Realm in the 325 at Goodwood, the listed Tapster Stakes. This horse beat Adio in the Lingfield Derby trial last year, winless since. I think he's been given some tough tasks. This is a race that Roger Varian's targeted in the past. He won it in 2015 and 2016. I thought Third Realm ran really well in the Buckhound Stakes behind Al-Azi. There is no Al-Azi in this race at Goodwood. So Third Realm 325 Goodwood is the nap. The next best, as I say, I'm taking on Hilts. Now, I do respect him. There was loads of money for him that day when he won on his handicap debut. He flew from behind, as Ross said. I think he's a horse to follow. I think he might be bumping into one. I'm hoping he might be bumping into one. And that could be Nathaniel Green. This is obviously the 4:13 at Musselburgh. He's a slow developing son of Nathaniel, obviously a star stayer. He's also a half brother to a horse who was fantastic over a mile 4, a horse called My Frankel, rated 100 at his peak. He ran over 1 mile 2 last time at Chepstow, a course that 100% did not suit him, yet he still managed to win that race. He looked far different compared to the 2 runs we saw him at 2. He seems to progress mentally and physically. I think the step up to a mile 4 will undoubtedly suit. William Haggis, 31 from 92 at Musselburgh, 34% strike rate, and he's his only runner on the card. I think that's very crucial for Nathaniel Green, but I do respect Hilts.
Interesting. Yeah, William Haggis' stats are just exceptional at the moment. 16 winners from 34 runners, and he knows how to place them anyway. So Nathaniel Green to take on Hilts. I'm going to take TC on with Third Realm with my nap, which is going to be Lone Eagle in the 325 at Goodwood. He's come back from a really severe injury. He fractured a fetlock in the King George when he was last seen. And I actually was surprised to see that he was going to come back into training, but I'm delighted that he is. And he's back at the track where he won the Cocked Hat this time last year, where he beat the likes of Yabir. And he's a very talented horse. He's on official ratings. He's got a mark of 119, so he's £11 clear of the rest, which is Third Realm. And I think he is the talented horse in the race if he is at his very best for his first run of the season. And I'm hopeful for him, Martin Mead and Sylvester de Souza. My next bet, I'm going to go with our first 2-year-old runner of the season, which is Larworth Cove in the 110 at Goodwood. The paddock, anyone going to the paddock will be put off by her size. So she is a pony. There's not much of her, but we wouldn't worry about that too much. She's got lovely breeding. She's from a very strong 2-year-old family. And I was really impressed by a piece of work she did a couple of weeks ago when I saw her. So I think she can go well for her first run. So that's the 110 at Goodwood. So that is it. That's all our naps and our next best for you all. Hopefully we'll continue on a good run of form. Thanks to James, to TC and to Ross. And make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll be back with you next week.